Hello and welcome back to our series on learning Java. Today we will be talking about conditionals and logic. Let's start by reviewing something from the very first video of my Intro to Programming. We talked about the fundamental goals of code. Executing commands. We haven't really talked about this yet. We saw one command in the last video, and that was our print command. Storing data. We talked about that last time. That's variables. We put data in our variables. And today we'll be talking about logic and conditionals. Next time we'll be talking about loops. So let's go over here, start writing some code. I'm going to start with our Boolean from last time. Java is cool. Well, of course Java is cool, but this is true. We're going to do some logic. If Java is cool. Notice to put parentheses around Java is cool. The if statement says we're going to pass into it one parameter. We'll see this a lot with other functions, but anytime you put something that's basically a function, we're going to put parentheses after it to show these are all the things that we need to tell it so that it can run properly. If just needs one, we need a conditional, a Boolean. It's true or it's false. It stores a Boolean. We already told it it's a Boolean, so of course it's going to work in our if statement. Now we put this. Some people call it a curly bracket, some people call it a brace, and my editor has nicely filled in the close one for me, which you can type with the other key on your keyboard. And I like to put a return inside there to show that this is now a block of code that's inside my if. You don't have to do this. The computer will understand what you're saying. If you don't, it looks a lot neater for other people to read it. So if this is true, I'm going to print a message. Your first if statement. Remember, every line of code has a semicolon. So what this says to do, the computer will check if the stuff inside the parentheses is true. I know it's true. I gave it this value. It has to be true. Then it will, if it is true, it will run whatever's inside the curly brackets. It'll do this print command. So if I were to run this, it would output the line of the text I put in here. Your first if. Yeah. Okay. Let's make this a little bit trickier. I'm going to make a new one, a new Boolean. Condition is kind of basic. I'm just trying to show that it doesn't matter what it's called. I'm just going to use it once. And I'll set it to false this time. I want to do two things. I want to make it work. I want it to do one thing if it's true and a different thing if it's false. Let's pretend I don't know what it is right now. So I can say if condition is true, that's what that says. There's like an implied is equal to true, but its value is either true or false. So I can just say if condition, and if condition were true, it would run, and if condition were false, it wouldn't run. And inside here, I'll print condition is true. Now, if statements are sometimes called conditionals because it operates on a condition, and that's why I call this variable condition. If the condition is true, it does one thing. If it's false, it does another. So now I want to do something if it's not true. So I'm going to use our not operator and say if not condition. Not will turn it, if it were true, it would now become false. If it was false, now it's true. And I only want it to run if it's false. So I'm going to make false become true and true become false. And now it will only run if it's false. And here I can print the condition is false. This entire thing will output the condition is false. Because the condition is false, we run this one here. The condition that is going into the if statement is false, so it doesn't run what's inside. This one, it's going to be true, and it will run what's inside. But there's a simpler way to write this. Because check, I'm saying this is true, and then it's not true. It's basically the same thing. The computer has a really neat way to handle it. It's called else. Else says, we're going to check if we just ran the thing in front of it. And if we didn't run that, we're going to run the thing after it. So if the condition is true, it'll run the first block. And then the else will say, oh, you just ran that, so we don't need to run the next thing. But if it was false, which it is in this case, we don't run the first block, and then else sees that we didn't run it, and so it runs the second block. Now we can chain these. I'm going to make a new variable, but this time it's going to be a number. Number is 4. Let's start with this. If number is greater than 0, that's a positive number. I will print the number is positive. I want to check if it's negative or if it's 0. So if it is positive, if it's greater than 0, I don't need to check anything else. But if it isn't, I still have 2 cases to check, if it's 0 or if it's negative. So I'm going to write another if statement. If number is less than 0, and I print number is negative. And only if both of those didn't run, then this last bit will run. And then I can say the number is well, our number is 4, if that's greater than 0. So this will print out the number is. And same as the last case, it'll print the correct thing the first way I wrote it, but there's a simpler way to write it. Notice here that we're checking an else and then another conditional. And I know that I don't want to run either part of this block, either the if or the else, if the first part is true. So what I can do is I'm going to delete this brace right here and the return. Write a line that says else if. And then I have an else, and I have an extra brace, that's why it's kind of yelling me down here. So I'm going to delete that. And now I have the correct number of braces. There's a neat keyboard shortcut that will format it well so that all of my braces are in the same line. And this helps me see that if, else, all of these are connected. If the first block is true, we run this block. Then all of these other things start with else, but we ran the first block already, so we're going to skip to the bottom. If this was false, then we're going to go here, else. If this is true, then we're going to run this, and then we have an else, but we just ran a block, so we're going to skip to the bottom. And if neither of these were true, we haven't run anything else yet, this else will see, okay, we haven't run anything, we need to run this last block. If it's greater than 0, it's positive. If it's less than 0, it's negative. If neither of those are true, it must be 0. Last one. I'm going to find one more variable, this last one. It's going to be 0 to begin with. I'm going to put a block called a switch. Switch takes one parameter, but this time, instead of being a Boolean, checking true or false, we can put anything we want. And we're going to provide cases for what values it could have. So I'm going to put in the number I just created, other number. And this is again a block of code. I need my curly braces. And I have to call cases. So in the case that the value I passed at other number is 0, I want to print the number is 0. So this is the only time in Java that we will represent a block of code with a colon, and my editor does not recognize it very well. So it thinks these should be on the same column, but I want them indented so I can see that it's really inside this case block. And then I have to put this keyword break. the next lesson, we'll talk about what break means. For now, just know that we're trying to tell it that we don't want to run any other cases. The number is 1. I'm going to do something similar to what I did last time and just tell if it's positive or negative. The number is positive. Case 2. Number is positive. I could keep running these as many cases as I want. Obviously, if I was trying to check everything, I'd want to use something more like what I wrote above to check if it's greater than 0 or less than 0. But right now, I think I'm going to have small numbers, so I'm going to be okay with just a few cases. I'm going to do some negative numbers, case -1, case -2, and I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to add multiple cases in a row, and the switch block will see if it's any of these, -1, -2, or -3, it'll run the next block of code it sees after that. In this case, I want to print the number as negative, because of -1, -2, -3 must be negative. And then if we didn't see the number yet, we can run this thing called default. If it goes all the way through all of the cases and doesn't see what we're looking for, it'll run with whatever is under default. It'll print. Number's too big. I made a few cases. Again, if I was trying to handle big numbers, I might run something like what we put above, where I can check greater than or less than. Here, I won't only check small numbers. If it's too big, I'm just going to say it's too big. So for 0, it'll find the case that's 0. It'll print the number is 0. Then it'll stop. Break. It's going out of the switch block. It's going to stop. Let's say it's 1. What will it print now? Well, it'll see case 1. It'll print this. But switch is funny, and it won't just stop there. It'll go to wherever the case is for the value we found, but then it'll just keep going. So if the number is 1, we're going to find case 1 and print the number is positive. Then it won't stop because we didn't put a break. And it's going to go into the case 2 block and print the number is positive again. Only then will it see a break and stop running our cases. So that's why having your break in a switch command is really important. Unless you want to do something like this, where it's going to check this, do similar stuff for multiple different cases. But you have to know that you want to have to break out of it every time, unless you're trying to do something specific where you don't want it to do this. With -2, well, we have a case for -2. It'll find this, and it'll run everything after it until it sees a break. This one will print the number is negative. Finally, what if we go at 5? We don't have a case for 5, so it's going to run through all the cases and not find it. So then it runs the default. The number is too big. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.